The envelope was waiting for me on the kitchen counter. When I came home at first, I thought it was a bill. Then I saw my name written across the front, in my mother-in-law's unmistakable handwriting. I looked toward the living room where my husband, Daniel, was sitting with his mother, Margaret. They were talking quietly, almost as if they were discussing something important that I wasn't supposed to hear. I opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper titled, in bold letters, House Rules. I actually laughed, not because it was funny, but because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Rule number 1, no sleeping past 7 a.m. Rule number 2, kitchen must be cleaned immediately after every meal. Rule number 3, guests must be approved in advance. Rule number 4, no unnecessary spending. Rule number 5, children must follow grandmother's instructions without argument. I read the list twice. Then I noticed the final sentence. These rules are effective immediately, while Margaret is staying in the house. I slowly folded the paper. Daniel, I said. He looked up. What is this? His eyes moved toward the paper in my hand. Oh, Mom probably left that for you, probably. Margaret smiled from the sofa. I thought it would make things easier. I stared at her. This is my house. Margaret's smile disappeared. Our house, Daniel corrected. I turned toward him. No. We bought this house together. We both pay the mortgage, and I don't remember agreeing to my mother having house rules. Margaret sighed dramatically. I'm only trying to bring some structure into this family. I almost couldn't believe my ears. For the past 6 years, I had worked full-time, helped pay every bill, cooked most of our meals, managed appointments, handled repairs, and kept the household running. Yet somehow I was the person who needed structure. Why are you staying here again? I asked. Daniel answered quickly. Mom's apartment is being renovated. It's only for 3 weeks. 3 weeks, I repeated. Margaret nodded, and during those 3 weeks, I expect basic respect. I asked. You just handed me rules for my own home. She crossed her arms. Because someone needs to establish boundaries. That sentence stayed in my mind long after dinner. The strange thing was that Margaret hadn't always been openly hostile toward me. She had always been controlling, yes, but usually in subtle ways. She criticized my cooking. She rearranged my kitchen cabinets. She complained when I bought furniture without asking her opinion. She once told me that our bedroom curtains were embarrassing. But this was different this time. She had put her demands on paper, and Daniel had done nothing to stop her. That night I lay awake beside my husband while he slept peacefully. I stared at the ceiling, then I reached for my phone. I opened the banking app. I checked the mortgage account, then the utility bills, then the house insurance. Everything was in both our names, but something else caught my attention. For months, Daniel had been telling me that money was tight. He had repeatedly asked me to cut back on groceries, delay replacing my old laptop, and stop ordering anything unnecessary. Yet when I checked our joint account, I noticed several large withdrawals I didn't recognize. My heart began beating faster. I opened the transaction history. There were payments to a storage facility, then another transfer, then another. I sat up in bed. What are you doing? Daniel suddenly woke up. Nothing. I turned the screen toward him. What is this? He stared at the phone. His face changed. Those are just temporary expenses. For what? He hesitated. Then he said something that made my stomach drop. Mom needed somewhere to keep her things. Her things, yes. How much? He didn't answer. I calculated the transfers. Nearly $8,000. I felt something inside me break. You told me we couldn't afford to replace the broken washing machine. It's complicated, no. It isn't. I got out of bed. What else have you been hiding? Daniel followed me into the hallway. Please don't start a fight. I'm not starting anything. I'm asking where our money went. His silence was the answer. The next morning I woke before sunrise. Margaret was already in the kitchen. She looked at the clock. Good. At least you're learning. I said nothing. I made coffee and placed the house rules on the table. Margaret smiled. You followed them. No, I said calmly. I woke up early because I wanted to. She frowned. Then I placed another sheet of paper beside hers. It was titled My House, My Rules. Margaret stared at it. What is this? My response, she picked it up. Rule number 1, no one changes locks. Furniture schedules, or household arrangements without agreement from both homeowners. Rule number 2, no one uses household money without the consent of both homeowners. Rule number 3, no guest may impose rules on the owners. Rule number 4, no financial information may be hidden between spouses. Rule number 5, respect goes both ways. Margaret's face became red. You are being disrespectful. No, I said. I'm being clear. Daniel walked into the kitchen. He looked at the 2 papers. What's going on? I turned toward him. I found the money. Margaret immediately looked at him. Daniel, tell her. He lowered his eyes. That was when I knew there was more. What did you do? I asked. He swallowed. Mom was going to lose her storage unit. So you used our money. She needed help. You didn't ask me. I knew you would say no. His words hurt more than I expected, not because he helped his mother, because he had decided my opinion didn't matter. Margaret suddenly spoke. You should be grateful that Daniel is a good son. I looked at her. A good son doesn't have to be a dishonest husband. The room went completely silent. Daniel sat down. I'm sorry. I shook my head. Sorry doesn't fix trust. Then Margaret said the one thing she probably regretted most. If you don't like how we do things, perhaps you should leave. I looked at Daniel. He didn't defend me. That was enough. I nodded, okay. Margaret looked surprised. Okay, yes. I picked up my phone. I'm calling the bank. Daniel stood. Wait, no. I walked into the home office. For the first time in months, I felt strangely calm. I contacted the bank and requested that no major withdrawals or transfers be made from our joint account without both signatures. Then I reviewed the mortgage documents, and that was when I found something even more shocking. The house wasn't only in our names. A recent document had been added to our file. Someone had attempted to change the ownership arrangement. I stared at the screen. There was no signature from me. My hands went cold. Daniel came into the room. What are you looking at? I turned the monitor toward him. His face went pale. Daniel. I can explain. Did your mother try to put herself on the house? He said nothing. That silence told me everything. The house rules weren't really about cleaning. They weren't about waking up early. They weren't about respect. They were about control. Margaret wanted to slowly make herself the authority inside a home she didn't own, and Daniel had allowed it. By 8 that morning, I had contacted a lawyer. By 9, the questionable document was being reviewed. By 10, Margaret was packing her belongings. She stood at the front door, furious. You are destroying this family. I looked at her. No. I'm protecting myself from people who forgot I was part of it. Daniel stood behind her. He looked exhausted. Can we fix this? I looked at him for a long moment. Maybe his eyes filled with hope. But not by pretending this didn't happen. He nodded for the first time. He understood that apologies were only the beginning. Margaret left that morning. The house became completely silent. I walked through the rooms and looked at everything differently. The same walls, the same furniture. The same kitchen, but somehow it felt like I could breathe again. That evening, Daniel sat across from me at the dining table. He didn't make excuses. He admitted that his mother had pressured him for months. He admitted that he had hidden financial problems. He admitted that he had allowed her to believe she had authority over our home, and most importantly, he admitted that he had chosen silence when he should have chosen his marriage. I told him I didn't know whether our relationship would survive, but I also told him something else. This house is not just walls and furniture. It represents our life together. If you want to stay in it, you have to understand one thing. What no one gets to make me a stranger in my own home. He nodded. The next morning, I woke naturally. No rules. No demands, no envelope waiting on the counter. I walked into the kitchen, opened the curtains, and made myself a cup of coffee. Sunlight filled the room for the first time in weeks. I smiled. Everything had changed overnight. Not because my mother-in-law had left, not because the rules were gone, but because I had finally remembered something I should never have forgotten. A home is supposed to be a place where you feel safe, respected and heard, and sometimes protecting your peace means having the courage to say two simple words. This is mine, not mine because I owned every wall. Not mine because I controlled everyone inside it. But mine because I deserved a voice in the life I had spent years building. And from that morning forward, the rules were simple. Respect was mutual, honesty was non-negotiable, and nobody, not even family, would ever again make me feel like a guest in my own home, hey?